Every afternoon, people shook their heads as they watched Eli Hutchins, a scrawny boy with dirt on his boots and a wagon full of rusty tools, comb through the outskirts of Maple Hollow to the townsfolk. It was pure folly. Who but a dreamer would collect bent wrenches, stripped gears, and broken handles left behind by better days? Laughter floated across fences, and more than one grown-up muttered, "That boy'll never build anything but a junkyard." They had no idea what Eli was picturing with every battered find, no notion that all those discarded pieces scraped together beneath the summer sun were part of a secret plan. And before the season's end, just beyond those doubting eyes, something would rise on the edge of town that no one would ever forget. Maple Hollow wasn't much more than a cluster of homes stitched together by gravel roads and fields that stretched for miles beneath a sky so wide it seemed to hold every secret and every hope. Eli lived with his mother and younger sister in a weather-beaten house at the edge of town, where the yard blurred into tall grass and wildflowers. Life turned slow in Maple Hollow. Nothing hurried except the river in spring thaw, or the wind running through corn rows. People mended what they had and did without what they couldn't fix, which is maybe why most folks couldn't understand Eli's obsession with broken things. From the time he could walk, Eli was drawn to rusted tools tossed aside in barns and ditches. He marveled at their hidden shapes, turning them over in his hands, seeing past the layers of age and ruin to what could be if only someone tried. Most saw junk, but Eli saw possibilities, gears that might spin again, handles that could steady new creations. He dreamed of building something big, something the town needed but had never believed possible. Eli's wagon rattled down Maple Hollow's lanes like a mobile scrapyard, and it made him a magnet for every sideways glance and snicker. "Hey, Rusty," the local boys would call, blocking his path just to see what old junk he'd picked up next. Sometimes they'd grab a crooked screwdriver or toss a useless nail back into the ditch, daring Eli to rescue it again. His mother, gentle but tired, tried not to complain when rust dust spilled onto the porch, or when her good kitchen towels disappeared to polish some hopeless bit of iron. But bills piled up on the mantel, and Eli's odd obsession seemed to her like one more burden in a hard year. In the shed behind the house, Eli tried joining bolts with pliers, fusing gears with glue, but more often than not, his models collapsed into tangled messes. One afternoon, he almost set the bench on fire trying to weld an old saw blade, earning a fierce scolding and a warning about burning down the place. Some failures stung, but every so often a stubborn bolt would move or a busted crank would turn just enough to offer a glimpse of what might be possible. Alone in the hum of cicadas, Eli's mind sparked with new questions. What if you connected this wheel to that shaft, fixed that lever just right? While others doubted, he grew more certain that hidden inside all this rust, something valuable still waited to be discovered. For every small victory, the setbacks multiplied. Some evenings, Eli would find the neat rows of rusty parts scattered by a stray dog or storm. Hard-won progress turned back into chaos. One brutal week, his prize gear, rescued from the old canning factory, snapped clean in half as he wrenched it into place. He tried to patch a broken pulley with wire and stubborn will, only to watch it seize and splinter with a shriek as he pulled for the first test. Adults who passed by shook their heads or delivered biting advice. "You're wasting your time, boy." "Those things are trash for a reason," rumbled the hardware store owner as Eli sifted through the giveaway bin at home. Even his mother lost patience after his makeshift wind-powered pump wheezed, stalled, and flung muddy water over laundry drying on the line. The final straw came at the town's summer fair. when Eli bravely unveiled his biggest contraption yet, a creaky bicycle-powered mill built from every kind of salvaged part. As the crowd watched, it lurched a few hopeful turns, then buckled with a clang, drawing laughter and sympathetic shrugs. That night, Eli sat alone in the dark back shed, feeling every word, every failure heavy on his shoulders. For the first time, he wondered if maybe everyone was right, that sometimes hope really did belong in the junk pile. A few days after the fair, Eli was sorting through a pile of discarded books at a neighbor's yard sale when an oil-stained manual caught his eye. Its cover, faded and torn, read, "Windmills and Water Wheels, Practical Inventions for Rural Life." Flipping through its pages, Eli found blueprints and sketches of old mechanical marvels, including a windmill built from mismatched parts and salvaged metal. The gears, cranks, and blades mirrored the very junk he'd been gathering. That afternoon, driven by sudden hope, Eli sought out Mr. Springer, an elderly machinist who once repaired farm equipment but now spent his days in the shade, whittling and watching clouds. With surprising warmth, Mr. Springer listened to Eli's failures, looked over his heap of rusty finds, and nodded with recognition. The retired craftsman showed Eli how the windmill's gear system worked, how balancing weight and harnessing wind could bring everything to life. Armed with the manual, new knowledge, and an ally who saw value in old things, Eli's mind raced with possibility. Maybe, just maybe, every mistake had been preparing him for this. With blueprints spread on the shed floor, a patient mentor by his side, and a new vision burning in his heart, Eli was ready to try again. With the manual's windmill plans propped open and Mr. Springer checking his math, Eli threw himself into the work like never before. He scoured fence lines and junkyards, trading odd jobs for battered gears and scavenging the remnants of harvest machinery left to rust along the creek. Each evening, he hauled home axles, wheels, and pipes until the backyard looked more like an inventor's playground than a farm. Under the old pine, he sorted bolts by size and sanded paint off metal blades, learning that even the most ragged parts had their place, if only he fitted them with care and patience. Eli studied how the wind moved across the fields. With Mr. Springer's encouragement and sharp eye for balance, he learned to build the main shaft so it wouldn't wobble or seize. They raised the tower using wood from an old granary and shaped crude vanes out of siding peeled from a collapsed shed. Day after day, failure dogged his steps. A crossbeam split under weight, 2 blades flew off in a gust, and more than once a whole day's assembly had to come apart so he could adjust by a single inch. Meanwhile, the town's mocking turned to curiosity as a few kids started stopping by, just to see. At first they offered only mild suggestions or sly bets on when it would fall. But as the skeleton began to rise above the orchard fence, their snickers softened. Eli's sister fetched water, and more than once, a neighbor quietly dropped off an old wrench or a pail of bolts. For all the setbacks, and there were many, every bolt tightened, every creak that faded brought hope closer. As the last big gear clicked into place, Eli and Mr. Springer looked up at the windmill's crooked homemade crown. Breathless with anticipation, all that was left was to trust the wind and see if a field of doubters could finally be proven wrong. The whole town felt the wind rising that afternoon. Cool, steady, promising families gathered by the fence line or leaned out porch windows, pretending not to stare as Eli stood beneath his patched-together windmill, nerves jangling beneath a mask of focus. His sister gripped his hand, and even the boys who'd teased him most watched in breathless anticipation. When Eli unclasped the brake, the wide blades quivered, jerked once, then caught the wind with a whoosh that echoed down the road. The whirring grew louder, a low, powerful hum, and suddenly the whole wheel spun freely. Gears meshed with a practiced click, iron arms pumping in rhythm until, down in the yard, a battered old water pump sputtered and then roared to life. A clear stream arced into the air, splattering light and hope across the dry ground. For a moment, there was only stunned silence. Then it broke, as neighbors cheered and clapped, some shouting Eli's name across the yard. Smiles and laughter replaced disbelief. The hardware store owner, who'd once doubted, wiped his eyes with surprise. Eli's mother hugged him tight, pride shining for the first time in months. Even Mr. Springer beamed like the sun. What had begun as piles of rust and ridicule had become something bigger, a dream spinning on the wind and a new story for Maple Hollow to tell. In the weeks that followed, the Windmill became Maple Hollow's new landmark, a beacon of hope turning steadily against the sky. It kept the old water pump running strong through the dry days of August, saving gardens, helping fill troughs, and even bringing back a few patches of green where the creek had dried up. Eli's family no longer questioned his tinkering. His mother set a place for Mr. Springer at their Sunday table, and his little sister bragged to anyone who'd listen that her brother was the boy who harnessed the wind. Neighbors began to drop by not to gawk, but to ask for help. Could Eli fix a broken gate or explain how a simple pulley worked? At school, the nickname Rusty was traded for inventor, and the same kids who'd once teased him now followed him home, eager to learn. The windmill's turning blades became a symbol for what could grow from patience, ingenuity, and second chances. Maple Hollow felt proud, and Eli, once just the boy with the odd collection, was now someone the town counted on. Eli's story is proof that what others called junk may hold the seed of something extraordinary, if only someone is willing to look closer and keep believing after every failure. Sometimes, the greatest inventions start with what nobody else values: a bit of patience, a heap of trial and error, and the courage to try again. It's not the shine of newness, but the strength of persistence that changes lives. In every forgotten corner and discarded tool, there's a chance to create something remarkable. As Thomas Edison once said, to invent, you need a good imagination and a pile of junk. Eli's Windmill reminds us all, never be afraid to dream with what you have and keep turning doubt into hope. Have you ever made something great from what others thought was worthless, or proved the doubters wrong in your own way? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how hope takes shape where you are. Let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of resilience and ingenuity every week.